Hello, welcome back to my channel and happy 2023. You've already seen my very first video for the year. I'll have it linked up in the info cards if you haven't yet. Essentially in that video I read the entire Alfheim universe to this point, and in today's video I am going to discuss my 20 in 23. A lot of people are doing 23 in 23, but I did not want to do that. I feel like I struggled last year with the 22 and 22, so I just want to do 20 books this year, books that are randomly chosen. These are not chosen by me whatsoever, unless they're like part of a series. Then I have gone for the first book in the series so that I can start that series, which might not be the best idea, but it is what I have right now. So essentially I sat on my computer and a whole lot of number generating, and it came out with Alchem. So I have about 31 singular shelves. So a shelf is just one row. I have 31 of those, and I estimated about 35 books. If the shelf had less than 35 books, I would just go back to the start and recount. If it had more, obviously not an issue. I'm just gonna jump straight into this. I really like watching this video, so I hope that you do too. So the very first one I have is shelf 1 and book 30. So this one I didn't have enough books on the actual shelf, so I had to go back and count again, and I picked up with The Fire on High. This is an author that I have been wanting to read from a while now, and I've heard this one was really good. This one is a magic realism. Basically our main character can infuse food with magic to make people feel a certain thing, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while, but this one has been on my radar ever since I heard about it, and I've wanted to read it for so long, and I'm really glad that this kind of gives me the opportunity to do so, because I have to be honest and say I'm not always in the mood for this kind of book. So it's quite, by this kind of book I mean like a very YA food related book. I don't know how to describe it much further, but it's very contemporary beyond the magic elements within. But I'm really excited to pick this one up at last and have a reason to do so other than, you know, my own feeling. Then the next numbers I got is 22 and 25, which put me on my thriller shelf, and I picked up this one, which is Bitter Sun by Beth Lewis. And honestly I've been thinking about unholding this for a while now, but the premise just sounded so good. It follows 4 kids who find a body by the lake and set out to solve that murder. I really do enjoy those kinds of stories where we follow kids getting up to no good. I liked it in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is a little bit more adult and historical because it's set in like 1971. The next set of numbers I have on here was for shelf 3 in book 24. This put me on City of Fallen Angels, and if you don't know, I'm currently planning on rereading the Mortal Instruments / the Shadowhunter universe, and that means that I have to actually start with Clockwork Angel, which is why Clockwork Angel is on this list and not City of Fallen Angels. I really love this series, as well as the Chain of Gold series. The Last Hours is actually what it's called. This series and that one are just my favorite from this entire universe, and I am so glad I can reread it. I got this really cool 10th anniversary special edition, and I'm so heartbroken that in South Africa we can't get the rest of the series like this. So it might be that I need to buy this from the US publisher or the US like Amazon or something. I'm really happy to finally have a reason to actually pick up the series again this year and actually make my way through it, and I'm also hoping to do some videos about the series. Moving on to my 4th book, the shelf that was chosen was shelf 30 and book 23. My last 2 shelves are kind of like non-fiction and my local books. So from my non-fiction shelf, I don't have that much non-fiction just because I don't have much interest in reading non-fiction, and I do want to change that because I think non-fiction is really great for growing your skills and your mind and your knowledge. And the book that I got chosen was Flex, the Modern Women's Handbook. Hopefully I can make my way through this. The next pick was again the non-fiction shelf, and for book 13, which was Inside Out by Demi Moore. I absolutely love Demi Moore. She's not someone who I tend to watch often, I would say, but I have loved her in shows that I've watched of her, which was like Charlie's Angels and a couple of others throughout the years, and my grandma actually started reading it. The next pick was shelf 3 and book 10. So I actually don't have the first book in the series, which was the House of Night series. This is on my shelf because I'm actually lending this from a friend, and I think I gave Marked back to him, but I obviously don't have it, so I do need to reread Marked to actually pick up the series again, and so I will be reading the ebook. The next book that was chosen was from shelf 26 and book 20, and that is A Million Dunes. This is Emily Henry's like backlist, and I actually forgot that she wrote these books, I'll be completely honest with you. This is like her YA contemporary novel that everyone actually was a massive fan of, I think 2-3 years ago, before her adult novels started coming out. This was her most popular book to date, so I'm really excited to jump into her backlist and read more from her, because she's actually become one of my to look out authors. I've read 2 books from her. I own another 2, but I read 2 books from her. I did not like the one. I loved the other one, and I have beach read on my shelf, and I have this as well. So 2 more shots for her to become an all-time favorite author. Then the next book is from shelf 17. This is my romantasy shelf essentially, and the book is book 22. And for that I have Glow by Raven Kennedy. I have yet to read this. Obviously I've recently read up until Gleam, and I'm really loving this series. I didn't think I was going to love it. In a really interesting twist of fate, I have been loving this series, and I'm so excited to pick up Glow and then hopefully Gold when it comes out this year. I think it's coming out in the middle of the year. I also am planning on actually rereading the series before Gold comes out, so I do want to pick up Glow sooner rather than later, just so that reread can happen sooner rather than later. I think I might just read those, like the 4 books in one go just before Gold comes out, and do like a whole vlog about it. I'm very interested. I'm very nervous. I do not know what's gonna happen in this one, and I'm quite nervous after the ending of Gleam. Obviously I hope you've heard about this book. This book follows our main character Oren, who is featured in a King Midas retelling, and she's essentially been favored, and by that she has been gilded from her head to her toes. Everything is gold and glinting and stunning, and everyone obviously wants to have her because she is Midas's most precious possession. All of those within the court despise her because she's the favored, and they don't understand why. So it is definitely without a doubt that I am super excited to pick up Glow this year, and I'm so glad I made it onto my list because I feel like this is an easy one that I'll be able to get through quick sticks. Moving on to my next shelf, which is the 14th shelf and 26th book, and that shelf, and that is basically my science fiction shelves. I am not that big into science fiction at the moment, which is such a Debbie Downer, if you will, because I feel like it is such an untouched genre for me, and what I have read I have tended to enjoy. So that's why I'm so glad that Across the Void was picked for me. This is by S.K. Vaughan. I don't know too much about this. It is set in the future, and Silent Night drifts across the ruins of a wrecked spaceship. Listing helplessly in the black, our soul woman May stirs within the last person left alive of a disastrous first manned mission to Europa, a moon of Jupiter. And that's just like, I don't know, this just sounded really interesting to me. I requested it years ago at this point, but I'm excited to hopefully pick this one up and give it a good go. I do know that a lot of things are being centered around Europa, the second, is it the second moon of Jupiter, or one of the moons of Jupiter? There's a game coming up, like a cozy game, that I'm also interested in checking out at some point. The next book that was chosen is from shelf 8 and is book 28, and I am so excited. It was actually, I'm pretty sure the book that was chosen, I think, was ACOWAR, and I don't want to read ACOWAR because I actually want to reread the entire ACOTAR series from the get-go. Obviously I read House of Sky and Breath towards like September, so towards the end of the year last year, and that ending has made me realize that I need to do an immense reread, and I actually do not want to read this edition. I'm planning on getting the new covers in hardback from the US, and I'm going to try and see if I can do that. I'm not the biggest fan of the new covers for the series, but I figured why not? If it's like the only option available, you can always like rejacket them. So I do want to get the hardcovers for the series because I initially read the series so quickly. So I'm really excited to jump back into this world, actually annotated for the first time ever. All of these still have my dog ears in it, and these are the original paperbacks that were from the UK, but sadly mine have been ruined by other people who borrowed my book, so it's been a little bit of a tough time. But I'm really excited to pick it up. I actually will be buddy reading this throughout the year with my friend Roseanne. Moving on, we are getting back to my thriller shelves. There are quite a few thrillers that were picked, which I was quite shocked by, but I guess because they span across so many shelves, it makes the most sense. And the one that was chosen came from shelf 22, and it's book 19, and it was essentially the first book, or the second book to the series, which I don't know what it's called. Oh, it's the Jane Hawk series. So this is the second book, and I have the third book. Technically, I think you could read them out of order, so I do want to read The Whispering Room first though. So I picked this one up. I also got sent this years ago. I've never read anything by Dean Koontz, and I'm really excited for this one. This one is a reason why I've kept it up my shelves for so long, and I haven't unhauled it, and that's because I'm a really big stickler for not unhauling thriller books because they all sound so interesting when I pick it up, but the thing is, like, I never pick them up when I'm supposed to. So I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to do so with this little challenge because there's so many thrillers that have been picked. The next one that was chosen is a behemoth of a book, but it's definitely one that I've been meaning to read for so long now, too long some would say, and there's been a lot of pressures from my partner in particular to read this book, and this book comes from shelf 12 and is book 29, and that is none other than Lord of the Rings. I will probably read this entire thing, which makes it a little scary, and I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited to pick this one up. I read The Hobbit last year, and I actually really enjoyed it, and I actually loved watching the Lord of the Rings movies when I was a kid. kid, they were my go-to thing to watch every weekend when my brother and I were planning on doing like a movie marathon, because that was the way you did it. You can't watch one movie on its own, you have to watch the entire trilogy constantly throughout the night. And so I'm so excited to pick this up. Maybe I will do a marathon of reading this as well. I probably won't read the entire thing in like one go because it is quite a long book. We're looking at over 1,000 pages. You never know. Moving on, we have my next thriller, and this comes from shelf 23, book 18, and that is 3 Perfect Liars by Heidi Parks. I actually received a approved copy of this, and this came out in 2020. So that's definitely, it's been a while. So this book follows 3 women who are the first in line for questioning when a body is pulled out of an office fire. All of them have reasons for wanting revenge against the company's CEO. And there's nothing like a corporate thriller for me. I haven't read too many of those, but I always find those a little bit juicy because I'm in the force, like the workforce, if you will. And so I think this one's going to be fun to read for sure. We're definitely getting towards the end of our list at the moment, so just bear with me. But the next one is another thriller as well. This one comes from shelf 21 and is the 3rd book on there, and that is Someone Like Me by M.R. Carey. This one is from the author of The Girl with All the Gifts, which I've heard amazing things about throughout the years, which is also why I've kept this for so long. And the cover for me is actually quite stunning. This one is a heart-stopping psychological thriller with a twist you won't see coming and a heroine who you can't trust. Liz Kendall won't hurt to fly even when times get tough. She is devoted to bringing up her kid in a loving home. But there's another side to Liz, one that's dark and malicious. She will do anything to get her way, no matter how extreme. And when her alter ego takes control, the consequences are devastating. So that just sounds quite interesting. It sounds like there is mental health representation on here, so I don't know what the rep is actually like within this book, so I will have to just read that up before I pick this up, and I'll keep you looped. Otherwise, I am really excited to pick this one up. I have to say this next pick is definitely one that was needed because I needed a little bit of a shove to complete this series. It's one where I read most of the books last year and I only have the 2nd trilogy left to read, and I've been putting it off because I'm quite nervous about the ending. The last book came out last year. I actually just need to complete it and just get it over and done with. And this book comes from shelf 14 and is the 4th book, and that is Restore Me by Tahira Murphy. I really powered through the first trilogy, and I will say that I am of the opinion that the 2nd trilogy wasn't that needed. I did like the way the first trilogy ended. It ended with Ignite Me. I really did like how that ended, and I will say that my reread of the series hasn't been going that well. I have basically found it a little bit less compelling the 2nd time around. It's definitely one of those series where you read in one go, you read it as you just read them in a weekend essentially, or within a week, and that's that. The reread, as I said, isn't like the best so far, but I'm still enjoying my time. These things are like addictive to read. It's so quick, it's so easy. Like there's no reason why I didn't finish these last year other than the fact that out of sight, out of mind kind of situation. So I'm really excited to continue on with Restore Me this year and hopefully actually finish the series for the first time ever. The next one is also about series continuation, and this also comes from my thriller side. In fact, I pretty much mentioned it in this video early on, and this comes from shelf 25 and is book 11. In fact, book 11 was further on in the series, but I need to read this one first before I continue. And then it's Killjoy by Holly Jackson. This is the small, quick prequel novella that takes place before A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. In fact, I'm pretty sure the UK publisher, which is Electric Monkey, is actually bringing out a box set with Killjoy within the box set, and then it's not too expensive to get because this book was quite expensive on its own. But I'm really excited. This kind of shows us why and how Pippa chooses her assignment in the first book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. So I'm excited to read this. It is going to be a really quick read. I have no doubt that I'm going to fly through it, but I also want to continue on with the series and finish it. I've been in 2 minds because I recently read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but I kind of want to sit down and read the entire series in one go so that it's out and it's done. I don't have to worry about it for the next little while when I do want to reread it, but hopefully not within the next year or so. But I will keep you looped on that plan. But I'm really glad that this got chosen because it's like a little bit of an incentive. The next book is one that I've been dying to read for so long, and it will take part of a video series that I'm planning on doing on my channel, which I'm really excited for. As I mentioned in my very first video of this year, I wanted to change things up in terms of how the vlogs are being shared and like what kind of content you're getting, and this will take part of that. And this comes from shelf 9 and is book 13, and it is The House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If you kind of know what this book is about or its genre or its themes, then it might give it away kind of what I'm planning on doing. But I'm really excited to pick this one up. I've heard nothing but phenomenal things. I have heard some things about TJ Klune that aren't necessarily the best. Do keep that in mind. I'm not entirely sure what has been said about him, but there is definitely some controversy around this author. year, so just keep that in mind. Moving on the same very shelf, I got to pick book 20. That ended up being Pan's Labyrinth. This is the movie to book adaptation, I'm pretty sure. I think Pan's Labyrinth is actually just a movie and then they made it into a book. This is the novelization, like, those are the words. And this is by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funke. Yeah, this is just stunning. I mean, there are some incredible illustrations throughout the book, and this is also one that I've been meaning to pick up. I'm a massive fan of things like mythology, retellings, and this just sounds like it's gonna be right up my alley, so I'm really excited to have this and pick it up. I've also got this like years ago at this point. We are now moving back to the thrillers and our last two books. So this book comes from shelf 24 and is book 26, with a lot of later numbers, not a lot of like early numbers in terms of the books. The book that was chosen is Kill for Me by Tom Wood. This just sounded really, really cool. So a house divided cannot stand. For years, two sisters have vied for the turf of their dead crime boss father. Across the streets of Guatemala City, buddies have piled up. The US Drug Enforcement Agency, operating far from its own borders, is powerless to stop the fighting. But now one sister has a weapon that can finally win the war. A cold, amoral hitman known fittingly as Victor. Freed from previous employers, the CIA and MI6, Victor is a killer for hire whose sense of self-preservation trumps all else. Yet as betrayal and counter-betrayal unspools in the vicious family feud, Victor finds himself at the center of a storm. Even he could be powerless to stop. That just sounds really cool. I don't think I've read a thriller like this before. Then the very last book on my shelf, it comes from shelf 18. That is actually part of my fiction shelf, and these are just like general fiction things that don't really necessarily fit into my fantasy, YA contemporary, that kind of stuff. And this is book 10, and I'm really excited for it. And that is A Traveler at the Gates of Wisdom by John Boyne. I actually got this also quite a while ago at this point, but I really enjoy John Boyne's writing. Obviously, my most key point, or my best reference of John Boyne is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I'm really excited for this one because I've not actually read any of his adult stuff. Some stories are universal, they play out across human history, and time is the river which will flow through them. For now, this is a family story, and this family is a father, a mother, and two sons. One with his father's violence in his blood, one who lives out his mother's artistry, one leaves, one stays. They will be joined by others whose deeds will change their fate. This is their beginning. And it just sounds so good. Doesn't that like description just get you really excited? So those are all the books that I plan to read throughout the year of 2023. They might show up in various kinds of vlogs. They might also just show up on my social media pages, so be sure to check those out. And yeah, thank you so very much for sitting through this with me. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books or what your 20/2023 in 2023 will be this year. I'm so excited to hear from you, and I will see you in the next video.